Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Planet Florida webinar today, preparing today's students for tomorrow's jobs. I'm your host, Laverne Handfield, Programs Coordinator with the Florida College Access Network. We have great guest presenters joining us today. I'm thrilled to welcome Mark Vianello, Executive Director of Career and Technical Education with Marion County Public Schools. Beginning with his service as an ESE teacher in 1991 to his current position as an Executive Director of Career and Technical Education, Mark has spent his entire career fueled for this mission, improving opportunities for all of Marion County Public Schools students and improving the community in which he lives. He continues to build bridges between education and employment while working to ensure relevancy in every classroom. His influence on education in Marion County has changed the future for many students, affording them opportunities for success in their own backyard. I'm also thrilled to introduce our second presenter, Nashla Dewari, Assistant Director of Student Services at Florida Virtual Campus. Prior to joining Florida Virtual Campus, Nashla's 15 years experience in higher education administration and student development has included a variety of efforts in admissions, academic advising, and first-year experience, to name a few, at the University of Colorado, as well as serving as faculty where she helped pioneer innovations in online learning and freshman seminar curricula. Currently, she directs outreach efforts from the My Career Shines training and support teams, serves as liaison between the service provider, the community, the leadership team, and the project advisory council members to manage enhancements of the system, and oversees the day-to-day operations of My Career Shines, which she assisted in leading the implementation of for middle and high school students. Nashla is passionate about engaging and helping students reach their educational and career goals, and is proud to play a role in preparing the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you both for joining us today. Before we dive into today's presentation, a few housekeeping items. First, we welcome your questions. This is all about learning together, so please submit your questions in the box, which you should see on the right side of your screen if you are viewing from a desktop computer. We will allot time at the end of today's webinar for our guest presenters to answer questions, but you can submit them at any time, and I encourage you to do so. Second, please share what you were learning on your favorite social media platform. On Twitter, you can find us at FL College Access, and please use the hashtags FCAN and PlanetFL. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. All materials will be available within a week of the recording, though you can find handouts in the handouts section of your control panel now. I know we have quite a few new listeners today who may be new to FCAN's work. To give you a little background on who we are, FCAN's mission is to create and sustain a statewide network that catalyzes and supports communities to increase college and career preparation, access, and completion for all students. Our vision is to see at least 60% of working-age Floridians hold a high-quality post-secondary degree or credential by the year 2025. We accomplish our work in three primary ways. The first is through research and data. FCAN publishes research and data on evidence-based practices and policy opportunities to strengthen Florida's talent pool. Recent publications highlighted student experiences with financial aid, transfer policies, and developmental education reform. Secondly, by supporting the formation and growth of local college access networks. These organizations are made up of community leaders who come together to create solutions and partnerships to support local talent development, and LCANs represent about 82% of the state's population. And lastly, through our statewide initiatives. FCAN coordinates 4 College Ready Florida initiatives to increase access to resources to support students in continuing their education after high school. We're going to start today with a poll question. We would like to know, what type of organization are you with? Higher education institution, K through 12 school district, community organization, government agency, or an other entity. We'll give you all a few seconds to get in your responses. See a lot of K through 12 school districts and higher education institution. Give you all about 5 more seconds. Okay, great. And we'll just see, we do have a good number of higher education institutions on the call today, and about a good number of K through 12 school districts and community organizations joining us. Thank you all for joining us and participating. We hope there is a key takeaway for you all today during the webinar. And right now, we will get into Planet Florida and highlight some strategies. The model and inspiration behind Planet Florida is the Got College, Got Career initiative from the school district of Osceola County. This program launched in 2013 after seeing that students still had no plan for their next steps right up to the day before their high school graduation, and also played a key role in helping boost Osceola County's college-going rate. The program leaders identified 23 overall strategies to help achieve the goal of increasing the college-going rate, but prioritized 8, including increasing the number of college tours along with visits to Valencia College and OTEC, inviting Valencia ambassadors to visit K through 12 classrooms, developing visible means to measure college-going rates, and creating a coordinated, centralized schedule and community scholarship lists for the county through the Education Foundation. FCAN saw the need across the state, as they did in Osceola County, to help students decide on their path before reaching high school graduation. Hence, FCAN has launched Planet Florida. The goal of Planet Florida is to ensure that every Florida student graduates high school with a college or career plan. The aim is for students to develop their skills and explore their interests, career options, and the education they will need after high school to achieve their goals. We've created several free resources available on our website for schools and community organizations to expose students to various post-secondary options and support students in developing their plan. The first of these resources being the Planet Florida Toolkit. The Planet Florida Toolkit serves as a framework of activities you can do in school, in the classroom, or after school to help students envision and plan for their future. Secondly, the College and Career Readiness Guide, which schools and organizations are welcome to adapt and brand, provides students and parents with exploratory activities as they progress through grades 6 through 12. The guide includes the major post-secondary pathways for students and parents to learn about options available after graduating high school, as well as career clusters to begin exploring different career fields. Inside the brochure, activities have been divided by grade level and into what we call college and career preparation tracks, or the 4 E's: expose, explore, experiment, and execute. Expose helps students get exposure to careers they may not be familiar with. Explore helps students, through assessments and other tools, begin to narrow down their potential futures and consider the education they'll need for their future career. Experiment seeks to give students the opportunity to begin to test whether these potential futures is right for them, and execute is the time to put their plan in action. As students navigate through each grade level and preparation track, we've identified goals they should hit along the way to help guide their planning for their career goals and next steps. The grade levels for the college and career preparations tracks have been broadened in the toolkit to include grades K through 5. These tracks also overlap, as some of the activities can fall under multiple categories. For those joining the webinar from the higher education field, these college and career preparation tracks can also be applied to students already enrolled at a post-secondary institution who may need more help figuring out the future career that's right for them, who may want to change their course of study by switching majors or add another major. Practitioners in higher education can use these tracks during that process. For example, a student unsure about the prospects of their major can speak to their advisor about the subject. The advisor can refer the student to other campus resources, Career Services will be able to help students explore potential careers aligned with their majors and find opportunities to be more exposed to these options. They may suggest an internship for the student to experiment in a certain role to develop their skills. The student is now aware of the advantages of the Career Services Department and can utilize them when planning to execute their plans they've made for their next steps during job searches. Finally, one-pagers are also available that schools and organizations can distribute to parents for further guidance on supporting students in developing a plan. We'll keep adding resources over time, but these initial one-pagers are designed to help students develop a plan by following the 4 E's, help students and parents understand the 3 main paths after high school: enroll, enlist, or employ, and help students understand the value of pursuing post-secondary education. Now we'll turn it over to Mark Vianello from Marion County Public Schools as they're beginning to implement their career planning guide. Mark, welcome. Mark, if you're speaking, can you unmute your microphone? We aren't able to hear you. Hi all, we're having a bit of technical difficulty. You can allow us 1 minute. We'll be right back with you. Hi all. When Mark is able to join us, he will be with us shortly. In the meantime, we'll continue on through the slides. During the next 15 minutes, we want you to think, maybe get you to think differently about some of the things we can do in education, perhaps challenge some assumptions, but most importantly, Mark would like to share what they're doing in Marion County as it relates to their career planning guide. This is a big picture discussion sometimes in education. We don't think about the big picture enough. Sometimes when we talk about students, we get caught up in the details. We talk about their success through the lens of learning gains or proficiency scores. We talk as if we have done our jobs, if we can get a student from one level to the next, or if we can increase a grade level's proficiency percentage by a certain amount. We don't want to minimize these topics. They're all important discussions. Certainly, we want students to receive a learning gain, and of course, we want them to be proficient. But in Marion, they're trying to find a balance between having those very important detailed type discussions and talking about the bigger picture of how they're preparing students while they're in school for life after graduation. First, we will divide the portion of this discussion into 2 areas. The first part will be why this is needed. And we have to spend some time here. We can't get good at the what of their career planning unless they have a good understanding of why it's needed. And then we'll get into the what. We'll share what they're doing in Marian, some of the resources they've developed and are using, and then end with some lessons learned. This is a great place to start. Take a look at the state's graduation rates over the past 20 years. This is something we should be proud of. We've all been a part of this in some capacity over the past 20 years. Our state has increased graduation rates by over 30%. What makes this so impressive is that we educate all students, not just some, not those we hand select, but every student who walks through our doors. And the difficulty of these graduation tests have increased over time as well. Today's FSAs and on our end of common course exams are much more difficult than the exit exams our students took 20 years ago. But here's the point. Although we're getting more students to the finish line in a more challenging process, it's not enough. In Marian, they've decided that just getting students to the finish line is not enough. So here's the why. How many of us know a recent four-year college graduate who is either living at home, not using their degree, still financially supported by their parents, and/or having cured a mountain of debt while attending college? It's always an interesting question because in every audience where this question has been asked, it seems the majority of hands go up.
Anybody
Mark,
hear me?
thank you for joining us. Yes, we can hear you great.
Okay, I apologize about that. Everything was working fine right up until it was time for me to talk. So, good afternoon, everybody. And Vern, I'm not sure where you left off on me. Were you into the why this is needed?
Just started.
Okay, so let me get started here. And I know I heard you talking, and it's really important that we understand the why this is needed before we get into the what. So I'm gonna hopefully provide a deep understanding of the why, and let me get into this. And so how many, this is a question I like to ask, how many of us know a recent four-year college graduate who is either living at home, they're not using their degree, they're still somehow financially being supported by their parents, or they've incurred a mountain of debt while they're attending college? And this is always an interesting question because in every audience where I've seen this question asked, it seems that the majority of hands go up. So we have to ask ourselves, what's happening? What's going on? These students that graduate with a four-year college degree, they're the students that we brag about, right? I mean, we hang pictures of these students in our school hallways, and in many respects, getting a four-year college degree is how we've defined success in education for decades. These students trusted us and did everything we, the system, asked them to do. And now, years after high school graduation, many of them are struggling to be independent. And they're struggling during a time when we hear workforce screaming they can't find enough skilled labor. We have to talk about this, and we have to try to figure out what's going on. In my opinion, what's happening is the speed of the world outside of education, which is being driven by technology, is evolving much faster than the message we've delivered inside the world of education for decades. And that message is, if you want to be successful, you got to go get a four-year college degree. Now, I want to be clear on this. I'm not saying getting an advanced degree isn't a good thing, but what I'm saying is what you major in matters, and we have to tell that story to our students. So if you take a look at this slide, 60% of the fastest growing occupations in Florida require 2 years or less of post-secondary training. And I've attached a handout that further breaks down all 50 occupations, the median hourly wage, the employment projections through 2026, if anyone's interested. we have to tell this story to our students and their parents. So we have changing workforce needs as part of our why. We can get to the other part of why by answering a return on investment question. And so here are two really good additional questions to ponder. What is a positive return on investment for a student who spends up to 13 years, kindergarten through 12th grade, in our school systems? And for the community, what's a positive return on investment after spending hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars to help educate its students year after year? I mean, these are really interesting questions. And if we discuss the answers to these questions long enough, I suspect we'd probably all agree that graduating high school with academic proficiency and a technical background is all part of that positive return. But again, just getting students to the finish line, having met all of the state's graduation requirements, is not enough. And Marion, we've come to the conclusion that in addition to meeting all the graduation criteria, we need our students to leave with a career focus and a coordinated, well thought out plan of what's next for them. So the goal of our career planning guide is for all of our students, and that's 100% of them, all means all, to leave with a well thought out, coordinated plan, and that each student selects from one of what we're calling our 3 E's, either enrollment, employment, or enlistment, and that we match a student's interest with programs that we offer and provide experiences while they are in school to help them self-discover these interests while they progress through our various grade levels. And at the heart of our plan is My Career Shines. And I know we'll get into this later in the webinar, so I guess this is just a teaser. But let me say at this point that My Career Shines really is a wonderful tool. Through a series of 3 different inventories, My Career Shines helps the student discover their interests and then matches their interests to a post-secondary institution that provides that particular training. It shares how much the schooling should cost. It allows the student to see what the salary is for a particular job and what the job forecast is in the state through 2024 and around the country through 2026. Students can set up an e-profile where they can build and share their resume. It's really almost a one-stop shop for career exploration, and the best part of this is that it's absolutely free. So the next 2 slides are an overview of our career planning guide, and let me walk everybody through how to read it. Each grade level has a list of activities that are required, and those activities are in red, or recommended, and those activities are in black, to take place throughout the school year. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the recommended window of time to get the activities done. At the bottom, there's a row that identifies the outcome for each grade level. So that's what we want for each student to have accomplished by the end of the year. So for example, in 8th grade, we're requiring each student to take the interest and skills inventories within My Career Shines. We want them to attend our Youth Career Expo and Magnet Expo, and that's already something that we have in place here in Marion. And by the end of the year, we want to match for that student that their interests are to our available academic and CTE choice programs throughout the district. So the number one issue in all of education, I believe, is relevancy, and matching interests to programs is a great way for us to help ensure that all of the high school years are relevant as possible for our students. The high school plan, as you can see as we transition to the next slide, it gets a lot busier. And if you can follow me, we're going to take a look at the 11th grade year. And again, have your eyes work down the column all the way down to the outcome at the bottom. What we're asking each student to do by the end of their 11th grade year is to select from one of the 3 E's. Select either employment, enrollment, or enlistment, so that during their senior year, the student can focus on completing their corresponding checklist to help ensure they are absolutely ready for whatever they've selected to be next for them after high school. And notice we built into the guide things that we are already doing. And in Marion, their career, things like the Career Expo or a job signing day, next working events, WIN soft skills, particularly for us in this first year, we wanted to try and reduce the amount of extra work this will require for our schools. So we intentionally built in supplemental events that we were already doing. So I mentioned the checklist, and let's talk about the checklist for a moment here. In the handouts this webinar, you'll eventually get all of our checklists. And these checklists were developed by a team of both school and district stakeholders, and they're a key component to this process. The checklists are designed to give students guidance through their middle and high school years while ensuring they reach their post-secondary goals. There are 3 grade-specific checklists that we've developed to this point, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, that will remind students of the importance of good study habits, ways to get plugged into school programs, and how to explore the different options available to them. The enrolled, employed, and enlisted checklists are designed to provide juniors and seniors with specific tasks to complete to reach their post-secondary goal. So just identifying an E isn't good enough. The checklists help ensure that the students stay on track so that they are prepared for whatever they determine is next for them. So take a look at the last point on this slide. How might this impact parent conferences? And sometimes we know it's difficult to get the parent of a secondary student to come in for a conference to talk, let's say, about math or science, for example. But if we can make these meetings with parents more relevant and share with the parent what their child is interested in as a career path, and we can tell the parent where in the state this post-secondary training can take place, how much it should cost, what the potential salary might be, and what the job forecast look like, then hopefully the parent will be able to see the connection between their child's chosen career path and why mathematics or science, for example, becomes important. We've built relevancy into the parent as well. So you might be thinking, Mark, this sounds really good, but here's the rub. The state doesn't test career planning. And for those of you who might have that concern, I ask you to ponder this. If we can personalize education, if we can build relationships with our students and get to know what makes them tick, then through these relationships, we can build relevance. And when a student understands why they are going to school, then you can get to high rigor in student engagement. And if we can accomplish all that, if we can build a quality system that's good for students, that's good for the community, then as a byproduct, we should see a positive impact on test results. And that's something that I absolutely believe in. So here's my last slide. And it's lessons learned. These are lessons learned from our journey here in Marion up to this point. And to summarize the suggested do's, you've got to over-communicate the why and the what. And you've got to give schools the flexibility to own this on their campus, and you've got to have a way to progress monitor and address problems as they arise. We've talked about this over the past 5 or 6 months. We've talked about this at multiple principal meetings. We talked about our guide, which we just rolled out this school year, but prior to that, we talked about it at multiple assistant principal meetings. We've had My Career Shines trainings with school leaders, school point people. We've developed a leadership team that consists of a point person from each school that meets regularly. We've had conference calls with our counselors, and every time we can get together, we clarify the why and we problem solve the what and the how. I mean, if we're going to be successful at this as a district-wide initiative, we all have to come together and we all have to work on this together. To summarize the don'ts, the big one is don't work in isolation. Don't develop resources in isolation. Don't communicate with only a subgroup of the stakeholders, and don't lower your standards. And what I mean by that is that all means all. We have to do this. We have to apply this to every student in our school system. We're really talking about a culture change from moving beyond only talking about the specifics of student success. I know this was the part that I was muted on, but talking about learning gains and proficiency, and those are all very important, but we also have to find a balance, and we have to talk about the bigger picture of helping students identify what's important to them after high school and helping prepare them to be successful with whatever that is, for whatever that means for the student. And in order to do that, it's really going to require a team effort, and that includes both district teams and school teams. So I apologize about the technical difficulties. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you find our resources that we've provided here in Marion helpful, and I'll be more than anxious and willing to answer any questions later in this webinar or even in the upcoming weeks. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if I could be of any help to you in your school district. And now I'll turn over the webinar to my colleague, Nashalon.
Welcome, Nashla.
Hello, thank you. I just want to do a quick sound check and make sure you can hear me okay.
We can hear you. You're good to go.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Mark. I appreciate you all joining us today, and certainly appreciate your interest in My Career Shines. I have to start by saying we're excited. We serve more than 700,000 students and job seekers that are using My Career Shines as the state's education and career planning tool to really help Floridians plan their future. So today I'm looking forward to telling you a little bit more about the statewide resource, tell you how it can help you support your initiatives, and how it helps complement the new toolkit from FCAN Planet Florida. I know that it just launched, so you may not have seen it just yet, but we're eager to support and assist with all 4 E's that you see in the toolkit: expose, explore, experiment, and execute. So again, I want to share with you today some of the features of the system, resources for students, for counselors, and for districts to help you support your program and certainly foster early career and education planning. If you're not familiar with My Career Shines, it's the state's career and education planning tool. It's available to you and your students at no cost. This system is funded by the legislature with the goal of increasing and, again, fostering career awareness, career planning, and career readiness for all Floridians. Now, I'd like to jump right in and share with you that there are several ways for students to begin to make progress towards career exploration and career planning. Now, the first step is for them to create an account in the system and take the assessments. Mark talked a little bit about the assessments earlier. I have to tell you, our system is powered by Cooter, so you'll hear me talk about the system quite a bit today, and I'll share some other resources outside of the system. But the company that powers this system, Cooter, is really known for best-class validity and reliability in their assessments. And like Mark mentioned, there are 3 assessments that students take. We know that effective career exploration and planning starts with finding out what you like to do, and that's the career interest assessment. Finding out what you're confident at doing, and that's the skills confidence assessment, and then what's important to you in the workplace, and that's the work values assessment. So those are the 3 assessments that are part of the system. They're quick assessments, and they really allow your students to begin to align their interests, their two careers, and then learn about those occupations, making a plan for education that's required for those occupations, and then start tracking their work in a portfolio. I'm going to share with you what that portfolio looks like here in the next few slides. Now, I mentioned the assessments. Once they complete those assessments, students then see the results right on their dashboard when they log into the system. Now, to the left of that, then they see the list of steps they can follow to start that journey. Start narrowing down their options for occupations, learn about the education required for those occupations, as I mentioned, and then make a plan to pursue those education requirements as well as plan for work. With those assessment results, the system will then suggest, like Mark mentioned, top occupations by interest, and then students can group them in different ways. They can group them by career clusters, they can group their interests by majors and programs, and even the Holland Code, it takes that into consideration. So once they click on an occupation and they start to do the exploration, they get to see the tasks that are aligned to that occupation, working conditions, skills, education, experience that's required for that occupation. They also get to learn about salary and the outlook, specifically in regions in Florida, and then any related occupations and jobs in that field. So For those of you that are using the toolkit and using Planet Florida, I want to let you know that this is actually one of the activities in the toolkit. So it's a great way to get them started with that exploration process. After they've had a chance to explore their top matching occupations, students also start to look at programs that align to those occupations and find out which either career centers, colleges, or universities offer those programs. They can also start to plan and make sure that they're on track, taking the right courses to graduate at high school level, taking the requirements for admissions into those post-secondary programs, and even preparing for Bright Futures eligibility to help them pay for college and cover the cost of tuition. Now, what you see here is an example of the template for that education plan that's part of the system. We call it the Ed Planner. The Ed Planner really allows high school students to develop that 4-year personalized course plan. The students can use this system. It's pretty interactive. They can select from the drop-down menu any course that they plan to take for that particular term or the year. And then as school counselors, then you have the ability to go in the system and approve those education plans electronically. So it's a great advising tool for you. Now, to help with that, Florida Shines, I wanted to do a quick plug because Florida Shines also offers Virtual College Week. So as students are preparing for post-secondary life, Virtual College Week is a series of webinars to teach students a variety of topics: college admissions, how to complete the FAFSA, financial aid, college success, and so on. Virtual College Week is happening the week of Halloween, Monday through Wednesday, October 28th, 29th, and 30th. So I invite you to visit floridashines.org if you're interested in inviting your students to attend Virtual College Week. Now, once students start to complete some of the activities and milestones in the system, it's certainly important for them to start tracking everything in that portfolio I mentioned earlier. That's also a feature of the system. You'll see an example of mine here. And again, another way for them to track their progress in the system, the completion of the milestones, and you don't have to have access to the system. This portfolio is actually shareable with any external members. In fact, college students and job seekers use this link to share with either prospective employers, graduate schools, or even in their LinkedIn profile to showcase their skills, their accomplishments, and even, as you see here, samples of their work. So I wanted to share that example with you. Now, there are other ways for schools and districts to track and make progress with your students. So outside of the system, My Career Shines has a variety of classroom activities and guides to help you with that journey. Mark shared with you his planning guide. I'll show you a couple of examples that we offered at the state level as well. But before I show you some ways to do that, I wanted to share this quote with you today. For those of you that have participated in one of the My Career Shines training sessions, you probably remember this quote. For us here at My Career Shines, this is a powerful quote. We know Florida's economy has changed dramatically since the turn of the century, and that new jobs are being created every day. We're still, however, training our kids to think about what they want to be and not necessarily what they want to do when they grow up. So as we learn about these new jobs and the future, we're really learning that it's about being able to solve people's problems, and that should be what we're teaching our kids. So again, it does take exposure. It takes a little bit of exploration. It does take them knowing what's out there, what's available, and what's to come. So I wanted to start with that quote or share that quote with you today to tell you a little bit of what's also available outside of the system for your students. There are several ways you can encourage your students for that exploration and exposure. Mark, I'm not sure if you guys share in the system a link to your career planning guide, but one of the ways to keep or track your students' progress is to actually share links from the recommended links in the system. You can see that, for example, here we've shared on their dashboard links to the Florida Shines Bright Futures evaluation, the Florida Shines Pay for College webpage, the step-by-step guide for 6th through 12th grades for college and career readiness. And so, again, this is a way for you to link school-specific resources that you'd like your students to have access to, or any tools that you're using to track your students' progress, you can link that directly here under the recommended links in the system. Now, I mentioned statewide resources as part of the list of supplemental materials that we have available. Here's an example of an education and career planning timeline that you can use with your students, certainly available to you through My Career Shines. This is similar to what Mark shared, certainly much higher level than what you shared, Mark, but just a great way to start and a great way to complement those of you that are using the Planet Toolkit as well. Lastly, as another resource I want to share that certainly supplements what's in the system. If you're working with middle school students specifically, actually, you know that there's a new, or I should say returning, requirement to complete a career planning course before entering high school. For this, we've created a curriculum guide, which you see here. This is also available for you to download, and all the activities here in this guide actually align the 8 standards for the career planning course requirements with activities in the system. So you can use that and certainly incorporate it into your lesson plans. Again, our goal is to provide you with any statewide resources that you can use to implement with your students, or customize them as you need to in order to incorporate any school activities or school-specific activities or requirements into your lesson plans. I've talked a lot about tracking and helping your students make progress in their career and education planning journey. At the district level, My Career Shines as a system gives you access to monitor usage from your students. This is done through the Administrative Database Management System, what we call ADMS, excuse me, which is also where you can customize links, checklists, any school-specific resources for your students, because you have the ability to send out messages from there to all of your users as well. If you haven't seen it, I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. But as I mentioned, here are some of the features that you have access to. You can do reports, you can monitor usage, you can approve those education plans I showed you earlier, and you can communicate with all your users at the system level. I'll give you an example. One of the most popular reports we hear that districts use is the top 3 career clusters report. For example, it gives you the most popular interest in your school or in your district. So let's say you have 700 students interested in education. Well, what districts are doing is they're grouping students by subject, and they're tailoring their activities and their academics or curriculum for that particular area to make sure that they cover those interests as well. This is an example, if you haven't seen it, this is an example of what that ADMS system looks like. It's very user-friendly. Your district and your school can determine levels of usage, levels of access for your different staff. And then again, it allows you to monitor progress and learn about the students in your area as well. This is an example. Let me show you an example of the reports that you'll see for your group. As I mentioned, if you chose, for example, one of the top 3 assessments from the drop-down menus, you can run that report and then see what's available as part of your district. I'm sorry, I seem to be losing my voice here. Now, if we go to the other slide, in addition to those reports, you can also run reports on registration, the amount of assessments completed, the amount of education plans that have been created, the amount of resumes and cover letters and portfolios that have been completed as well. So you get a pretty good sense of what's happening in your district in terms of progress as well. I wanted to share a few other resources that you may not have heard about that are part of this system and may also help you support your initiatives. The first one is the parent portal. The system offers a parent portal that gives access to a student's assessment results, the career portfolio, the education plans I shared with you earlier in the slide. So this is a great way to start the conversation about planning for the future and getting that additional support at home if you want that parent involvement. Students can give access to their parents easily from their accounts, so certainly work with your students if they're using the system to give access to their parents. And as I mentioned, continue those conversations at home. Now, today I've mostly shared features of the system powered by Cooter with you. However, on the main page, when you go to mycareershines.org, you'll find several other resources depending on the audience that you're working with. So for instance, if you're working with pre-K through 5th grade students, the website has job profiles for many occupations to start that exploration process. At the middle and high school level, there's also a breakdown of career fields, career clusters, that education to career and income connection for the most popular occupations in Florida, and so on. So the students can see under each area the range of careers that align with a large range of education requirements as well. If you're working with college students and adults at the workforce level, we have information specifically related to Florida's top jobs, job banks, writing a resume, interviewing, and so on. So a lot of information that you can find on mycareershines.org before you even get into the system and create an account that's certainly available to you. We also have a section of our website dedicated to our partners. So those of you that are seeking professional development or training to use MyCareerShines for your students, that's that partner portal there. At any time, if you're using the system, you have access to phone and chat support. And we also offer several videos and tutorials to reference how to use specific sections of the system. I also want to tell you that the trainers are wonderful. They're available to connect with you via webinar, connect with you virtually, and really training is with the mindset of training the trainer, if you will. We offer face-to-face sessions to learn more about each of the online tools, and training is really designed to give you a in-depth understanding of all of the features that I mentioned today, as well as the administrative functions that I shared with you, reporting and so on. Now, we've assigned trainers to each region in Florida, so if you don't know who you should be contacting, here's their contact information. Maggie serves regions 1 and 2, North and Central Florida, and Paula serves South Florida. So as I mentioned, we're here to help you, not just with face-to-face or virtual training, but any startup implementations, district-wide implementations, any long-term support, tracking progress, program evaluation, and just sharing a network of stakeholders and career and education planning professionals around the state. My last slide is really about staying connected. If you want to learn more about MyCareerShines, there are several ways to do that. You can do that. We have a monthly newsletter where we share updates through that channel for MyCareerShines and Florida Shines services. You can find us on social media. We often also travel around the state. Certainly welcome to visit with you at any career or education planning conference throughout the year. And if you're interested in requesting promotional materials for your schools, for your classrooms, for your students, there is a promotion button on the top right of our website. It'll take you right to the marketplace where you can find flyers, postcards, any materials that are available to you, and you're certainly welcome to request those to help us spread the word about MyCareerShines. So we're happy to send those your way. I'd like to thank you today for your time. You'll see my contact information here, and I think at this point we'll pass it on to Laverne and we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasha and Mark, both for your presentations and the wonderful information you shared with us today. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to submit them in the questions box, which is to the right of your screen if you're viewing from a desktop computer. Right now, we'll get into questions. Alex would like to know, they're from a nonprofit organization associated with a school, and they're running a mentoring program. They'd like to know, can their students use MyCareerShines?
Certainly, yes. And so depending on the level that the students are working with, we always, as they create an account, we always ask that they associate with a district, but they certainly can create an account. The system is available to every Floridian in the state.
Can the students use it working with their mentors?
Yeah, absolutely. So I shared two things today. I shared front-facing services, if you will, where the student can log in themselves and then you can see the results of their assessment and walk them through the steps on the left of that dashboard, to explore occupations, learn more about the jobs, and so on. So that's one way to do it. The other way is through the administrative database management system. Now, in order to have access to the ADMS, the mentor or that particular organization or the coach, they really need to work with the district to get access. If you heard me say earlier, the district is the one that determines the access levels for each staff member or individuals working with those students. So they need to work with that district to get access to the ADMS if they are looking at tracking progress for a group of students, if that helps.
Hello. Oh, sorry. Do you have districts, Nasha, that auto-enroll their students in My Career Shines?
I don't believe I'm aware of any districts that do that. Typically, because there's different models around the state, the startup or the creation of accounts can happen in a classroom. They may happen with a counselor one-on-one. They may happen at a media center or a specific time period during the day for a group of students. So I'm not aware of any districts that are doing that at this point. There may be, but I'm not aware of any.
Well, and I'll speak what we're doing here in Marion. We're not able to populate all the students automatically. What we have to do, and that's part of the logistics of all this, is to for the schools to own this, to do what makes sense for them. But they've got to schedule throughout all of our grade levels how they're going to bring a class or how they're going to enroll their students. And so it creates, we've got a very lofty goal of making sure all of our students are engaged 7th through 12th grade. They're touching this. We're using this to help them self-identify what's important, but monitoring this as they go through it and monitoring the checklists as the students have identified their E. That's something that either a school or if a district is taking this on, they've got to think through that level of detail of what is the plan to make sure all students are enrolling, all students are completing the inventories, all students are engaged in the resumes. And then how do you progress monitor that? And then what's the plan from the district if and when you see that there are some schools that may be struggling more than others? How do you provide additional support to those schools so that across the board, when we say all means all, every student has the same access and they're going through the process regardless if they're from one school or in the other?
Thank you. A question for both of you. Mark, in your district, and Nasha on My Career Shines, are there any resources or programs available to help students who want to become entrepreneurs, who don't want to go straight to college or enter the workforce immediately, but would rather start and own their own business?
Well, Nashla, I can start if you don't mind. We several things here in what we're doing in Marion, and the first ties right in directly to our career planning guide. And as I mentioned, we've got our students are going to select an E. So our timeline suggests that for our seniors, we ought to know in October, those students that have made the choice that for them, what they want upon graduation of high school is to seek immediate employment. Now, we've never been able to pull that information from a district level before. So we ought to be able to run a list and say we have X number of hundred of kids or whatever it is that are looking for immediate employment. So once we have that information, then we work very closely here locally with our Chamber in Economic Development. We work with CareerSource. We work with organizations such as the Manufacturers Association, and the Builders Association. So we can create that win-win of companies that are looking to hire and grow their own employees, their own workforce, and those students that, for whatever reason, they want to come right out and start working right away. So we think that's going to really create a good match there. And then the other thing is, specifically to the entrepreneurial, we've created what we call Career Choice Academies here in Marion County. And what a Career Choice Academy is, it's a CTE program of choice that any student in the district can go to. We've got one located at each of our high schools, so you don't have to be zoned for that particular school if you're interested in that concept. And each one of our Career Choice Academies was designed to help meet the workforce and economic development needs of our community, of our region, and of our state. And so one of our Career Choice Academies is entrepreneurial, and we just opened that up at Forest High School this upcoming school year, and it's been very successful so far. We've had a lot of students from around the district who are interested in that concept to go ahead and apply and get accepted into Forest, many of which will want to go on and continue their education, but some of which will want to go right into the workforce upon graduation.
So I'll add in, Laverne, My Career Shines doesn't per se have entrepreneurship as an occupation to explore, but I can think of quickly two features of the system that will help in assisting students with that. One of them is for them to make a plan, their ed plan, and make sure that they are taking classes that are relevant and are beneficial to prepare them for that next step. And then certainly the e-portfolio to track their work and then connect and share that link of their portfolio with businesses and other mentors that they're trying to connect with in the community. Those are two specific features of the system that I think will be helpful for students thinking about that particular field.
Thank you both very much for that answer. One quick last question for Mark. How are you staffing your career planning initiative? Do you have designated people at schools to help carry out with the initiative?
Yes, and that's a great question. We've intentionally built in these activities. Of course, My Career Shines doesn't cost anything, which is a tremendous resource. We've included as those optional activities things that we're currently doing. So this does not cost anything to get up and running. And we wanted it to be very flexible. So if at the bottom of our career planning guide, you'll see a list of people that was one of the first questions the schools asked us, well, who's going to own this? And so we didn't want to say this one particular category of individuals, whether it be a counselor or assistant principal or a career lab specialist, that we wanted the schools to make that decision. So we gave them some suggestions and let them build this on their campus to what makes sense. Now, but what we've asked is for each of the schools to identify a point person, and we meet regularly with that being our leadership team. So we have 18 of us that come together and talk about what are best practice, what are you struggling, what are barriers, how can we help problem solve the barriers. So that's just a strong recommendation, is to give schools the flexibility to make this work on their campus.
Thank you so much, Mark. We have reached the end of the webinar. I'm sorry we were not able to get to all of the questions today, but you can reach out to Mark or Nasha to get your questions answered. The handouts are currently in the handouts section, and the recording for the webinar and the handouts will be out within a week of the webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. Mark and Nasha, thank you for presenting. And everyone can have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.